Hello and welcome back. You are here with us live at AWS Cloud Infrastructure Day. My name is Fiona McCann. I am a solutions architect in the public sector, and I'm really excited to be here today with some experts from the storage area of AWS. If you were just with us in our last segment, we were talking about networking, which is one of kind of the baseline pieces of building in the cloud, but another one is storage. And I have Laura, Lee, and Mark here. So I'll let you introduce yourselves one by one. Laura, do you want to start?
Absolutely. I'm Laura Shepard. I'm a go-to-market specialist here on the storage team, and I specialize in high-performance storage.
Lovely.
Hi, chat. My name is Lee here. I'm a principal SA for Amazon S3. I've been working on Amazon S3 since 2012.
Wow.
Oh, 2012. Is that as long as S3 has been around?
Yeah,
Not quite.
Not quite. Chat, what year was S3 created? Let's see who can answer first.
And I'm Mark. I run our worldwide go-to-market for storage and have not been here as long as Lee, but I've been with AWS for almost 10 years. Excited to tell you a little bit about storage innovations today.
Fantastic. Thank you all. So I'm hearing storage, I'm hearing S3, and I know that we'll be talking about storage specifically for machine learning and analytics workloads. Can you tell me a little bit about what our viewers can expect to see today?
Absolutely. We were thinking about covering the whole portfolio, but as you know, we have the broadest and deepest storage portfolio
so
in the
we can't
cloud,
do every single thing in 20
all,
minutes?
So
okay.
Just wanted to focus on the most exciting stuff where we're getting the most engagement, the most questions, and we have a lot to talk about. So let's do it. Storage for Gen AI ML and storage for analytics.
Storage for AI ML and analytics sounds like a great place for us to start. So where should we start?
I guess for Gen AI ML.
Let's just do it.
As you know from watching these previously, you've seen that we're working with thousands of customers over multiple years for Gen AI ML, and we're able to take the patterns of success and kind of back them out and then offer them up as patterns for people to adopt. And so I wanted to just touch on two of those today.
Yeah, let's do it.
And one of them is, for Gen AI ML, everyone needs a data strategy. And we're going to come back to that because I know that's pretty high level. And the second one is at scale, like once you've scaled wildly successfully because you've had a good data strategy, at scale, you need to start looking at storage architectures that can support the elimination of data wait time for your compute. So those are the two patterns I wanted to go through.
Absolutely. And we're getting comments that are saying that this is crucial for prepping for Gen AI. How does creating the proper data strategy impact these workloads?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to start really early. I mean, as soon as you're thinking about what your model approach is going to be, what your compute approach is going to be, you already want to start thinking about what your data strategy is. Because even if you're doing something quite simple today, if you're wildly successful, and you will be, it's going to grow like crazy. And so you need to be thinking about how do you want to ingest your data? How do you want to curate your data? How do you want to annotate it, right? And how do you want to keep it secure and make it available to all the feature functionality throughout the stack you're going to need over time?
Absolutely.
So that's why you need a data strategy. Because if you just stuff everything in, one place, and then later you need to do something else with it, it's going to be hard.
Not properly prepped. And so is that data strategy going to be different for different customization techniques? I'm seeing pre-training, fine-tuning, and retrieval augmented generation. Will we have different data strategies?
If you want to be prepared for all of them really well, you want to start with a well-formed data lake. And usually that means implementing on S3 because it has the feature function for data ingest, data egress, curation, augmentation, and it can scale cost effectively over time.
Absolutely.
But when you get really, really big, right, now we start talking about an additional storage infrastructure pattern where you're talking about large-scale inference or large-scale model training or even, distillation or pre-training. Then you need the data to be really quickly available, and you want to avoid data wait time so that you can maximize your compute.
Okay, so I'm seeing these are 4 different types of data wait time.
That's right, and these are the 4 where your storage architecture can help you minimize or eliminate, right? You don't want to be waiting for that first byte of data, right? That's latency, right? I'm seeing how fast people can type.
Give it to me quickly. I don't want latency.
And I've got the second and third one is throughput, but they're really one thing. If you're not building the architecture big enough and you're not taking into account how much each compute element can take, you're going to have data wait time waiting for the data to fill up the pipes, and you don't want that. And then, of course, there's data copies. You don't want to wait for data to copy before you can use it. And this is a big one.
Away.
That's right, absolutely. So people avoid these problems of data wait time by adding a high-performance layer of storage, usually on FSx for Lustre, which was mentioned in your first segment.
There you go.
Or increasingly these days on S3 Express One Zone, which is a great segue over to the S3.
A little segue over to you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Demo dance.
Awesome, great. Well, yeah, so, good tee up because Laura, you talked about the importance of kind of a solid foundation, the foundation of the
Right.
house and the data strategy, right? And so, we've, I don't know if folks know this, but really today, S3 is hosting exabytes of tabular data today in the form of Parquet objects.
a lot of tabular
right?
data.
So that's a lot of tabular data. Really, you think a lot of folks think about S3 as storing images or videos and so on and everything, but really it's become this massive tabular data store.
And what might customers be doing with tabular data?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked.
Thank you so much.
Lots of stuff. So financial transactions, weather data, website impressions and analytics, so that can be more targeted. And all that data gets processed and stored in S3 in a tabular form, mostly in this Apache Parquet format.
Right.
And so that's today. And so what's happened is over the years, with these exabytes of Parquet files, there's been this emergence of an open standard to manage this. That's called Apache Iceberg.
Right.
And so we saw this a few years ago, and today, we have customers, and for the last few years have been running Apache Iceberg on Amazon and using it to manage metadata, supporting transactions, flexible schema evolution, and I'm going to tee up Lee, time travel.
Time
which is
travel.
super
We talked about
cool.
time travel.
But again, think about it as a metadata management layer
Okay.
on top of your tabular data that allows you to manage these, huge, vast amounts of Parquet files, right? And so we
Right.
saw customers using it, and we said, we can help them, as we do because we're customer obsessed. And
course.
so we launched at reInvent last year. We launched Amazon S3 Tables, which is a fully managed Iceberg table for S3. It's a first-party citizen, and it includes all kinds of capabilities to allow customers to easily manage their Iceberg tables and let us do the heavy lifting for them. And so because the high-level takeaway on it, I won't get into all the cool details
Right.
on it, Lee will do that in the demo, is all the heavy lifting, think about the schema management,
Okay.
some of the things like compaction and so on. And the takeaway from it is Amazon S3 Tables, we have something called a table bucket, which is a new type of bucket that we know the data is Iceberg tables. So because of that, we can say, okay, we're going to really focus it on what can we do to optimize performance, so we can get query performance, in some
Right.
cases up to 3x, and TPS, transaction performance, compared to just dumping it into general purpose buckets up to 10x. Again, your mileage is going to vary,
Yeah.
but if you did nothing and you just dropped it in, you can get a significant amount of performance just by going to S3 tables.
Yeah, that's quite an improvement. If anyone here is currently using tabular data in S3, please do let us know, and let us know if S3 Tables is something that you've been able to experiment with yet. I know that it just came out at reInvent, right? You said this past December.
It did, yeah. And so a couple things we announced, if we want to go to the next slide, Laura, is we announced some general availability of S3 Tables about a month and a half ago or so with SageMaker Lakehouse and a lot of the Amazon and AWS first-party analytics services. You can enable S3 Tables integration from the S3 console, which Lee will demo, and SageMaker Lakehouse is accessible directly from SageMaker Unified Studio.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that we're going to get to see this in action. Do you think this is something we could dive in and take a look at?
Would love to. I'll say one more thing.
Please
so
do.
And the last slide is, and it's not just AWS. We heard from customers, hey, I
Got
want to
it.
use my other open source solutions and my other analytics tools. So we introduced we used IRC, or Iceberg REST Catalog support. So now any solution that supports IRC can access and use S3 Tables
So
today.
not just analytics workloads.
So analytics workloads, we have all kinds of open source querying engines and everything. Anything that can support IRC now can support tables today.
I like it. Sounds like you're making customers' lives easier.
We hope so.
We hope
so. Okay, Lee.
Well, I think it's time for the demo dance. Should we head
Can
to
we
the
do
demo?
the jazz hands? Did we say?
Demo dance, okay. Let's have a good demo. All right, so yeah, could we bring my screen up, please?
Let's see what this is like in action.
All right, great. All right, so you can see I'm just on the S3 console here, and I'm looking at the general purpose buckets, but for S3 table buckets, we actually have a whole new bucket type,
Okay.
as Mark had mentioned. So here we are, we can see I do have a few table buckets here already, but I'm gonna go ahead and create a table bucket.
So we're creating, this is like a section within a bucket, and it's specifically for tables.
It's a different
It's a different
kind,
type. It's a different kind of bucket.
Different kind of bucket altogether.
It's a bucket just for tables.
That's right. So we're going to
Bucket just
create,
for
first we're going to
tables.
create the table bucket, then we're going to create a namespace.
Okay.
And that is another container for a subset of tables.
I see,
For example,
okay.
I might have namespace for dev, QA, and prod. So I
Right.
could have the same names underneath, but I have these different, so you know
Got it.
what you're in.
I love
and then
it.
you can
I
have
love it.
different permissions for those namespaces.
Right.
So your QA people are not on prod.
Right.
And things like
We're
that.
not having the intern break everything in the prod environment.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
I think we're going to have to do the demo dance handshake.
Is it time for the
We
demo
are,
dance one more
because
time?
It's
It seems to
flickering here a
be-
little bit.
It does seem to be flickering, unfortunately. All right, so I'm just going to create my demo bucket.
Let's do it.
And then you can see that I also have my analytics integration enabled already. So that when you create your first table bucket, you want to enable the integration with analytics services. And this means you're integrated with Glue, Lakehouse, like Formation, and also with Athena. So,
So
we're
it's
going to show that in just a
giving
second.
it's giving those analytics services permission to access
Permission
the
to
table
access.
bucket.
That's right. So make
permission
it
to work with
easier
that
for
data.
you to just get started. And we'll show you how to
Absolutely.
do that. All right, and also we released just recently new encryption types. So we announced encryption with SSE KMS in addition to SSE S3. So by default, it's going to be SSE S3, but you can choose.
But if I wanted to
KMS.
manage my own keys,
That's right.
you'd let me?
And so yes, and I can do this at the table.
Would you let me?
We'll let you do that. And at the table bucket level, that means that each table will then inherit that.
I see. Okay.
So we do that.
So
let's go
let's
ahead and
create it.
that. Bucket
This bucket already exists. You need a new name.
I do need a new name.
Someone
Let's
already
do-
created a My Demo bucket?
I did. I did.
Who could it have been?
It could have been a bit. There you go. Okay, so now we have my bucket 2.
There it
in
is.
addition to that one. All right, so now from within there, I am going to go ahead and select that, and then I'll create a table with Athena. Now I also need to either create a namespace or use an existing namespace if there was already a namespace within that bucket.
Okay, and so this is where you were saying that you can partition this bucket into different groups. So maybe
Right.
if you wanted to have dev separated from prod,
Right.
they would sit in different namespaces.
Exactly. Then I'll so create that.
All right, so there's the
That
namespace
was
sitting
done
in your
already.
table.
All right, so now I can just create a table, and it's going to take me to Athena, and hopefully we'll be able to see that. Great. And you'll see that it already created this little create table for me. So I could do something. I can just take this and go ahead and run that.
There you go. And what are we looking at here? It looks like we have sales.
We have sales data.
Okay.
So we have sales, product category, and the sales,
sales
amount. So
amount.
it's a very simple little table.
I like it.
It's just the default. So we'll just go ahead and use that. And then I also can just add some data.
there's
So
some
what I'm going
data.
to do, let's go through what we've got here. So we're
Yeah.
going to insert some data.
Okay.
We're going to make sure it's there.
So I'm a seller. I sell laptops and monitors and keyboards and mouses. Mice.
Mice. Right. And then we're going to do
Mises? No,
Mises.
Mises. So then we're going to update it. We're going to change the amount of one of the objects, the laptop, to
Okay.
be a little bit more expensive. We're going to check that, and then we're also going to delete the entire category of keyboard.
Okay. And so let me take a guess here that what you're trying to show me is that at the end of the day, you'll be able to time travel back and see the initial state.
Bingo.
I can't wait to see. Let's do
Can
it.
we do the time travel?
Time travel dance too?
I hope it's more effective than our demo dance.
I hope so too. All right. Now, what's interesting about this? So all I have to do is highlight it, and then I can run that particular action.
All right.
And I tend to push the Control C because I'm used to doing that. But
Right.
you don't have to do that. You can just do that. So I can see that I do have my
there you are.
information, right? So I've
There's
got
my laptop that I sell for $900.
$900,
And
right?
my keyboard that I sell for, is that $60?
$60. Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
But I think it might be a little cheap on the laptop. So let's increase
Hey,
the
I just
price
have good
there.
deals.
Yeah, right. Increase the price there just a little bit.
All right, so now my laptop is $1,000.
It should be.
All right.
So
Let's make
let's
sure.
make sure the query finishes here. Actually, okay, complete.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's take a look.
Let's see here.
I think you're going to have to buy a new laptop after this one.
It looks like you might need to buy one of my $1,000 laptops.
You
Lee.
probably do. And here you can see the laptop is now $1,000.
All right, so you made that change.
Okay, made that change.
Okay.
Now
Now
we're
I
gonna
don't want
go-
to sell keyboards anymore.
I don't like
Delete
keyboards.
it.
Keyboards, what's the point?
I want them gone.
They come with the laptop. after
Exactly. I
all.
don't need another one.
Don't need
I carry too much every day.
That's right.
All right,
All
so
right.
now you've selected everything, so this should show us the new updated table.
Yep, we're going to go ahead and run the select
Run it.
and see that we no longer have the keyboard.
Will the keyboards be gone?
keyboards be gone?
Keyboard be gone!
Keyboard be on. All right, so now we're going to get into the time travel. So the first thing we have to do is we have to find out what our snapshots are. Now, one of the things about Iceberg is that every update that you make creates a new snapshot.
Every single update.
Every single update. So I should now have 3 snapshots, and I do.
see.
Right?
So that first snapshot is the initial state, then a snapshot when you increase the price of your laptop, another snapshot when you deleted the keyboard.
Exactly.
It's a lot of snapshots.
It is another.
How long are we holding these snapshots?
Well, by default, we hold for 24 hours.
Okay.
Right.
But I could change that if I wanted?
You can change that. All right. So as you can see, this first one here doesn't have a parent ID because that's the first one. Right. So, but if
It
you
is the
notice,
parent.
it is the parent. And in fact, you'll notice that the parent ID of the second snapshot is the.
There you go.
Right. So we know what that is. All right. So we're going to click and we're going to go back to the snapshot. And all we have to do is do the select and put in that snapshot ID.
And let's see what we get.
Okay, and then.
Are we doing the time travel now? Can I do that?
Yeah, is this time for time travel dance? Now we're time travel?
So yeah, we're going to see what it was like. What was that? 4 minutes ago or
Back in the
so.
olden days.
And there we can see
Laptops
now
were
our
only
keyboard
900.
is back, and we have a laptop at $900.
There you go. Wow. Okay, so this
Yay.
isn't the current state of my table,
Right.
but because this existed at some point, and because this is taking a snapshot and holding the snapshots for me, no matter what changes have happened during this day or during whatever period we're holding on to these snapshots,
Right.
I can still go back and see
Go
the
back
state.
and look at the previous state. That's right.
Why does this matter to customers? Why might we want to be able to do this kind of time travel?
Well, maybe you want to know what kind of changes have been made. Maybe you want to compare between what it is now to what it was previously. Or maybe you know that someone made a change and you want to roll it back.
So this kind of show when a change might be associated with a certain person who's made a change?
Exactly.
I see. I see. All right. So, what would you say if you are someone who's about to use this? In what way is this changing the customer's life in a way that if they weren't to have this service before?
Right. Well, it'd be harder. One of the things that Iceberg does is not only does this time travel, but it really keeps everything atomic, right? So this is it's almost like a database, doing that transactional type of request without having the expense of a database.
I was going to say, if you're saying it's like a database, what are some of the other differences?
So it's a way to put all of your data in one place, have one source of truth in S3, which is common where people commonly do that. You have to store different copies for different uses. You store it all in S3, and then you can use it for analytics, for AML, and things like that.
So yeah, I'm seeing obviously the use case here with making these changes and grabbing the snapshots. What would you say are some of the biggest value add features that you get or value add actions that you can do using S3 tables?
Well, so Iceberg has become very popular for doing these types of things. But
Does anyone here use Iceberg?
Anyone use
Let us know.
Iceberg? Yeah, right.
You do. Mark does.
Every day.
But the maintenance of it can be a little challenging.
The maintenance of it.
The maintenance of it. So if you don't, so as I said, every time you make a transaction, you're creating a new snapshot. You're also creating new data files. So the more data files you have, the more S3 has to retrieve more and more of those objects. And it slows down your query time.
Okay.
But so what the compaction does is it takes those smaller objects and makes them into larger objects, which means fewer requests, queries go
see.
faster.
And this would previously be something customers had to do manually.
Customers had to create Spark jobs.
They were using Spark
Jobs to actually do this on a periodic basis. And they had to figure out what they should be doing and when on their own. And we'll do that for them.
So that's where we're really excited about this introduction. We heard from customers, and sure, customers have been doing this, right? But we've talked to now. I've personally talked to hundreds of customers and thousands of customers.
That's a lot of
telling us-
customers, Mark.
I've talked.
Mark
It
talks
was
to
a really busy week at reInvent. So we talked to a lot of customers, and what they said is, like, yeah, we can do this. We don't want to do this. This isn't our. We don't want a team of engineers to have to do all this heavy lifting and everything at the
Right.
storage level. This is great that you're doing this for us, and the tee-up is also. This is just the beginning, right?
Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
lot more that we're going to be introducing. Compaction and the querying times are just just in the last 2-3 months, we've introduced IRC support, as I talked about. We GA'd S3 metadata, which
Wow.
we didn't even get to, but so we only had 20
only
minutes.
20 minutes.
First-party query engines we talked about. We just launched KMS support, and on May 7th, we made S3 tables available in 11 additional regions now, so more
Fantastic.
customers can take advantage of
Yeah,
it.
so we're up to 30 regions. So
That's a lot of regions.
From 3 at reInvent.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty fast too. Only
Pretty
since
fast.
December.
So
Yeah.
Stay tuned
Stay tuned
because
if you're
we're
in a region where it's
innovating
not
at
yet
light speed.
supported.
More
That's
coming.
fantastic. Well, I hope that of those hundreds, thousands of customers that you've talked to, some have already been able to implement S3 tables. For those of us who are watching, what final message would you leave for them about how to get started?
So get started. There's a great blog post. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. You can just go and search S3 tables, but there's a blog post that summarizes our key updates over the last 5 months. Keep coming back because almost like weekly, it seems, we're introducing new capabilities and making it available in more areas.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining us. And those of us who are tuned in, stay tuned for the next section.